Oh, hi folks, hope you're well. I hope you like the veterinary video that I did. It's all very fascinating for me. Anyway, on to pastures new. I tried to give a bit of an eclectic mix of my videos, so here's video number 2 for the evening. Yes, no, I'm not bored, I've got plenty to do. I just want to share what I found out because I'm excited about it, that's all. And you may find it interesting, I don't know, but forgive me if you don't. You can always switch off. But maybe you're doing your ironing with the headset on. I have no idea how you listen to my chops. Some months ago, I heard a thing on the radio. This thing, a man talking on the radio, and he was quite a distinguished chap. He was a scientist in America, a psycho counselor of some kind, psychiatric counselor, and he spent most of his career dealing with criminally insane, what are deemed to be criminally insane prisoners. And he made a report and quite a statement on the media all over the place, saying that his professional view, which is quite distinguished his whole career, he is now confirmed that it is possible and is highly likely that human beings can, of course, be contaminated and harbour an evil entity, an evil spirit. I would prefer to call them an entity. There's many names for these things. Archons are probably the most popular name amongst them all, but not all archons interfere with everyday people. They just get on, they're out there. We don't see them, they're on a different wavelength. But sometimes they contaminate our wavelength. And I'm a big believer in a majority of our consciousness is not housed in our head. Some of it is, but a majority isn't. We all have this ether around us, like an invisible bubble that we draw upon. It's like our little oxygen tent that surrounds us. This is my theory, and some people think the same. And you know, everything we have an aura about us, and within that aura is information that we accumulate throughout our lives, and we draw upon this information. And we make rational judgments about things that are in there and what we allow to live in our heads, which are predominant in our heads. The things we don't use every day, don't cluster up the cupboard, have a clean out, put it in the storage areas outside your brain, but the meat and potatoes is in here, apparently. Anyway, this chap said, in his humble opinion, after years of research and psychoanalysis of people who have committed the most horrific crimes against humans, yes, it's highly likely that humans do have, unfortunately, humans have in the past, and those inmates that he's been dealing with are actually possessed by an evil entity. And everybody was laughing at this guy. Well, he who laughs first, last, get my teeth in. And I've never really been one to react so quickly to people making statements. I'd rather shut my mouth until I research it and think about this for a while and chew it over and, you know, masticate it, chew it in my head for a while before I even pass comment. Well, I have to confess that I agree with this guy, because there's no other accounting for their behaviour. Some people on this world, including those people in prison, have been... You see, there's plenty who haven't been caught, okay? But those that have been caught have been found to be not wanting. They've been contaminated big time. You know, if you look at people like, you know, in the story, Hannibal Lecter, on the face of it, he's absolutely fine, isn't he? But this guy was a serious... He's a penny short of a quid if ever there was. Hannibal Lecter. But there's loads like him. Loads. And there's something, you see, that takes over. Well, it has to be physical in the sense that it has to exist in his head. Otherwise, it either exists or it doesn't. Okay? Because thoughts are things. They're just in a different ingredient, if you like. But they're still things, aren't they? Otherwise, they wouldn't exist. Everybody has evil thoughts, but they're tacky. They're tiny compared to what these people are harboring. And these people are possessed by a personality. And there are people with multiple personality disorders, of course there are. But they can be mixed. They can be gentle souls one minute, violent souls the next. You know, these are the entities could be gentle or violent. But some people just harbour a real shyster. You know, I would put people in that category. Example of being like that would be people like the Moors murderers, and I would hazard a guess that people like Ted Heath, a previous politician who was a bastard, they were possessed, and same as Jimmy Savile was possessed. Absolutely do agree with this. People who do such horrendous crimes, primarily to children and adults, but primarily to children because they're easy targets. And I think there's far more, quite frankly, than society wants to admit that are actually possessed. I watched a very close-up video of George W. Bush talking about the development of the New World Order. And the camera was zooming in on his eyes. And it happened to Bill Clinton as well. Whereas halfway through, the camera's focusing on their eyes, and you could see that their eyes, they don't blink like that, they blink like that. But the insides of their eye, not the actual eyeball, they weren't blinking downwards with their eyelids. Their eye was moving across, totally black, and back again to normal. Because that's the possession. And you have to be in a position where you can pause the video to see this frame by frame by frame, and it does happen. And it happened certainly on camera to a few of the American politicians. Yeah, Clinton and the original old Bush. I've seen photographs of Tony Blair, where he's got lovely blue eyes, our Tony. Okay, and then I've seen photographs that he's got absolutely jet black eyes. And you think, where's the trick of the light? No, it isn't. Not really. Zoom in. No, old Tony, his eyes change. He's been known to throw himself on the floor and have fits, frothing at the mouth during his possession times. And his wife attested to that. And the same with Hillary Clinton throwing herself all over the White House when she was knocking around with Bill in the White House. Yes, Hillary Clinton. These are the ones who are possessed, folks. So I'm a big believer in this, and I think to a degree, if you're ill, during my illness time, my recuperation of having a near-death experience, well, I had two in close succession, but the first one was particularly traumatizing. I was very vulnerable. I was very confident, very active, would never sit still, always out and about doing my own thing. And then I went from sublime to the ridiculous. Because after my little life-changing event, I became a bit of a hermit. I didn't want to go out. And I felt very vulnerable. It's called morbidity, the feeling of dropping dead. And it's true, it takes a lot of getting over, especially with something like a heart problem, because you know the thing can stop at any time. And it's like turning a turtle on its back. It's never going to get up. It's waving around his little legs, trying to, in a state of panic, because it wants to get over again and be back to normal. But, you know, you're very vulnerable showing your little underbelly. You know, this is why such people go through periods of morbidity, because they feel suddenly what we value as our life can be taken away from you so easily. And you have absolutely no control over that. And, people out there live with this morbidity. I still have morbidity in this, in a less dramatic form, but it doesn't go away. And sometimes it materializes in the early phase of recovery in what they call panic attacks. And I'll give you an example. A year ago even, I was watching a film, and I noticed that my hands were shaking. I thought, Christ, Alzheimer's. But I couldn't account for it. I looked at my hands and they were literally shaking. I felt absolutely fine otherwise. I thought, well, I couldn't figure this out. I just thought, well, maybe I'm just tired. Maybe I need some sugar. You know how it is. Sometimes you're hyperglycemic and you need some sugar and this sort of thing. And I kissed my loved one goodnight. I was having an early night. And by the time I got in bed and I was settled down reading a couple of pages of a book, my whole body started to shake. I thought, what's going on? Then my legs started to shake, and there's no way I could stop them. And then the muscles, my muscles on the side of my back, were starting to twitch, and I had a full-blown panic attack. My jaws become tight, and I knew it was a panic attack. I knew, that was the irony. I knew. But something had taken over. I had absolutely no control over this. I was getting rigid, and I was shaking, and it is awful. It's like describing colour to a blind man trying to explain what a panic attack is to somebody who's never had one. And I used to say, oh, bloody panic attacks, don't be ridiculous. Me, panic attack, really? I know what I'm doing. I know, no. And I firmly believe that panic attacks are a form of demonic possession, because there's no accounting for them. They're unjustified, in my opinion. I never asked for it. I didn't invite it in. I wasn't thinking about it. It just started. It took over me. I was just waiting for hovering off the bed. A bit like The Exorcist. I had no control, and it was terrifying. Absolutely terrifying. I thought, how long is this going to go on? It lasted for about 10-15 minutes. But I had absolutely no control or escape out of that. And anyway, quick trip to the doctors afterwards. Tell me what the hell happened to me last night. Oh, he said, you got a panic attack. Don't worry about it. It's cognitive therapy behaviour for you. You need to change the way you're thinking. That's what I don't have stinking thinking. I'm a clinician, for Christ's sake. I know all the game. I know the business. No. Panic attacks. Any age, any sex, any experience. It can happen like that. I can be driving along in my car and get a panic attack. I thought, oh, bloody marvellous. Just what I want, holding onto the wheel at 70 miles an hour. But you are exposed to this. Do you know there's no cure? The only thing that will cure it is positive mental attitude. Well, yes. It's hard to be positive when you're surrounded by negativity like that on your back. But it is a monkey on your back. It truly is. And you think, the only thing I can think of is it's a contamination. It's a demonic possession. It's screwing around with me. And if I don't pay it much attention, it'll go away, because it loves it. It loves pissing me off. So I managed to get through effectively 3 months of this. And now I don't play ball. If I know I can feel one coming on, you can be free of these things maybe for a couple of years. I think that's it, it's gone. Oh God, yeah, I used to have panic attacks. They're bloody awful things. I can relate. I have empathy for you. And then I can go home and sit down and I could be exposed to one like that. I don't think you ever get over them. I think they're always dormant in our deep psyche. It's this feeling of vulnerability with a near-death experience or trauma of some kind. It doesn't have to be a near-death experience. It can be quite a traumatic event. Soldiers coming back, girls and boys, after being in a war zone where their life is under threat, they suffer massively with panic attacks. But it is the vulnerability, and when we are vulnerable, things can jump into our consciousness, our subconsciousness, can't they? And these things have to be a thing. You know, it has to be something popping in. And it's just like these bastards who claim that they're possessed when they murder and kill and abuse others of all ages. And they do such horrendous things. But fortunately for me, I haven't had that entity jump into my head. But they reckon that they're possessed, and so does this doctor. I'm inclined to agree with him, but I'd be curious to know what your thoughts are. Maybe you have panic attacks, and maybe you've gotten over them, but there's an old adage, isn't there? Time is a great healer, and you will eventually, if you do have panic attacks, they will become further and further less frequent. The time difference, time spacing will be different. Yeah. But I don't think you'll ever be over them. You will, once bitten, forever smitten. You will always be vulnerable to them, because there's a residue. And it's almost like these bastards know, these demonics, they know the ones out there that have had the trauma and they're easy targets. Okay, and the only thing you can do really is try and, it's like saying don't think of elephants, and well, the first thing you think about is elephants. Wham! You know, so I walk around in a constant state of morbidity, but it's just a matter of, you never know when your next heart attack's going to happen. You truly don't. There's, you know, I haven't had heart surgery. You know, I'm managed with a couple of springs, a couple of stents, but it's a progressive disease, what I have. And ultimately, you know, I'm not bad enough to warrant having a bypass. So I've just got to suffer the slings and arrows for a while. I mean, you know, I did argue the toss that they should do a bypass on me when I'm young, relatively, compared to many out there. But no, you've got to be on your knees, your hands and knees on death's door before they'll do a bypass on you. But it doesn't make any sense, because I'll be a lot older then, hopefully, and I'll be even more of a wreck. But what's the point of curing someone who's nearer a wreck? Why don't they cure people who are going to be there eventually? Hit them now. Treat them now with a bypass. So they've got 25 good years ahead of them. Because the average person, to be honest, after a bypass will only live an extra 10 to 12 years. That's statistics for you. Well, there's always people bucking the system, isn't there? So I have to be quite stoic about life. And everybody's life can be snuffed out tomorrow, or in the next 20 minutes, or in the next 5 minutes. You know, you can't live like this fear of morbidity, but it gets you, particularly when it hits you hard and disables you for such a, you know, short period of time with no warning. But going back to this chap who spent years studying this, there's no accounting for somebody, is there, who's evil? They're either evil or they're not, but some of these people are perfectly lovely for about 5 minutes and then they switch. These multiple personalities. But the multiple personalities would imply to me there's multiple possessions. It just makes sense to me. I don't know what you think, but that's the way I see it. I'd value your opinion, and we'll call it a day. And 2 videos tonight. Think yourself lucky. I'll spend more time tomorrow maybe, but got other things to do right now. But I'd like to know your answers underneath and see what you think. Have you had panic attacks and how you deal with them? I'd like to know. Answers on a postcard below as normal. thumbs up, and please subscribe if you haven't. Take care now. Bye.